Okay, in this video we're going to be discussing how to remove or replace your front fender. It's a simple project, takes maybe 5-10 minutes tops. First thing we'll do is we'll discuss the tools that you're going to need, and then I'll show you step by step how to do this so that you can do it on your own. The first tool that you're going to need is a 10mm socket. This socket will be used to remove the 2 bolts that are holding the brake assembly in place. Next up, there's a crescent wrench, and then I have a number 17 gear wrench. These 2 items will be used to remove the bolt that's holding the tire in place so that we can get access to the underneath of the fender. And then the last thing that you're going to need is an Allen bit. This Allen bit will be used to remove the 4 screws that are holding the fender in place. Okay, that's it. Those are all the tools that you're going to need. Let's get into the step-by-step process of removing this thing. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 10mm socket and we're going to remove the brake assembly from the brake disc itself. All you have to do is remove these 2 screws or 2 bolts. And then once you've done that, what I like to do is put this brake assembly and the 2 screws on the floorboard of the bike just so that they're out of the way and I know where they're at. Next up, we'll go ahead and remove this tire. We'll drop it down so that we can get access to the underneath of the fender. So let's show you how to remove the tire itself. So we're going to take a crescent wrench. The crescent wrench is going to go on the head of the bolt. This is just to ensure that the bolt doesn't spin when we're trying to remove the nut on the other side. Just holds the bolt in place. Next, we're going to take our number 17 gear wrench and we're going to place it on the head of the nut that's holding the bolt in place on the other side. And we're just going to loosen it so that we can take the nut off. And then once we take this nut off, we're going to push this bolt through. Just like this, it's out, so we can take the bolt and the nut. I put them to the side here on the floor. And now I can drop down this tire so that I can get access to the underneath of the fender. So let's go ahead and remove the tire and put it to the side. That way it's out of the way. Now we can focus on actually getting the fender off of the bike. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your Allen bit and you're going to remove the 4 screws that are holding the fender in place. Each screw on the inside has a nut. For most bikes, you can just hold this nut with your hand and then unscrew the screw and you're fine. Some bikes can be stubborn though, and you'll want to be able to use like a pair of channel locks. You can take those channel locks and hold the head of the nut on the inside and then unscrew the screw, no problem. This bike though, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to do it with just the hand. Yep, so we'll just remove all 4 screws here. And what I like to do is take the nuts off and then I'll remove the screws one by one. So all the nuts are off. Now I can push these screws out, just like that. And now the only thing that's holding this fender in place is the tension that it has on the inside of these shocks. So at this point, you'll notice that these fenders have what I call wings that come down probably 2 or 3 inches, and they run the length of the shock here. The easiest way to remove this fender is you're going to push those in, the wings you're going to push in, and then we're going to drop the fender down and just pull it out. The reason I do that is these fenders are notorious for showing scratches and nicks and all kinds of different things, especially if you have the flat black fenders, they'll show everything. So the easiest way to remove and to replace fenders is by taking these wings and pushing them in. So you push them in, and then you're going to pull down or push up, depending on what you're doing with the fender. When you're removing the fender, you're going to push in and pull down. When you're putting the fender back on, you're going to push in and push up. So I'll show you real quick. We have our blue fender that we're going to put back on the bike. Now, these fenders, I don't know if you can see this in the video here, but one side is a little bit longer than the other. So the shorter side is going to be facing forward. The longer side is meant to be the back side of the fender. So this looks like it's the shorter side here. So again, I'm going to take these wings and I'm going to push them in, and then I'm going to push up, and I'm going to line the holes that are on the fender with the 2 holes that are on the sides of the shocks here. Next up, I'm going to take my screws and I'm going to push them in from the outside in. So at the head of the screws on the outside, and I'm just going to push them in the corresponding hole. Same thing on this side, and then one on back side, and you might have to lift the back up. There you go. All right. So all 4 screws now are in place. Now I'll just come in and put the nuts on the inside, and then we'll grab the Allen bit and we'll just snug these up, and this fender will be in place. So a helpful tip that I would definitely recommend here is when I'm tightening these up with the Allen bit, I'll apply pressure to the front edge of this fender so that when I'm done tightening, there's not a chance that it's going to rub on the front of the tire. Okay, so if for whatever reason this is too low on the front side, it could touch the tire on the front side and the tire will rub. So what I'll do is I'll basically put my forearm in place as I'm holding these nuts on the inside, and that basically ensures that the front side of the fender is as far up as it'll go. And again, I'm just snugging these up. I'll do the same thing with this side. You don't have to get this too tight. In fact, you don't want to get it too tight. You just want to snug them up. And that's it with the fender replacement here. So everything at this point is just going to be in reverse. So we'll grab the tire, we'll lift the tire up, we'll put the bolt in, and then we'll put the brake pads on, and we'll be good to go. So let's go ahead and put the tire back on. Okay, so I'm going to grab my tire. I'm going to put it in place. Something to keep in mind also with these tires, they have these spacers on either side of the tire. Make sure that those are still in place. Sometimes these will fall out whenever you're dropping the tire down. So just make sure that they're still in place, and then we're ready to lift this tire back up. And these will basically align with the holes that are at the bottom of each shock. And they're meant to be tight. So sometimes you've got to push these shocks out a little bit so that the tire will fit. That looks pretty good. We'll take our bolt. We're going to push the bolt through. Just like that. We'll take the nut, put it on the other end. And like I said, it's going to be the same process, just in reverse. We're going to take our crescent wrench, put it on the head of the bolt so that the bolt can't move. And then we'll take our number 17 gear wrench here, and then we'll just tighten this nut up. And then again, you don't have to go crazy with this, just snug it up. I like to give it a couple turns. That's good. Last step is just going to be to put our brake pads back on. So we've got our brake pad assembly here. Put the bolts in. And then we'll grab our 10mm socket, and then we'll just go ahead and tighten them up. And that's it. You have a new fender put on the E-RIDER, and you're ready to hit the roads.